This is a video riding out west that seemed like a pretty good example of how to recover on a roadbook. And so what you'll see is me and another guy out here riding, and we are lost. We're turned around. You can see I am looking around. Find a road. It's at like 16.7. The road book says at 16.9 I'm supposed to see something and take an action, so clearly something's not perfect, but yeah, this seems like the closest to right thing that we could possibly have. So I go riding off, and I'm looking over my shoulder like, oh, okay, is the other guy with me? Like, can this possibly be right? So we're continuing to ride in the wrong direction, and things aren't making sense. So we pull up and we stop. None of this matches.
Yeah. The initial turn did.
Yep. Yeah, I think we must have turned too early or something, because none of this is right. Yeah. So when I popped up on that road where it's cap heading of 2, where we crossed that bottom,
Yeah.
it wasn't really quite cap heading of 2.
Yeah. I was on the wrong mileage there. I was like just a little bit long.
Yep. I was a little bit short.
But I didn't really mend when we swapped bikes just after the turn he missed.
Yeah.
I didn't really straighten things out there properly.
So yours was right where, when I got off of it, it was right.
Okay. Well, I'm at 18.5.
I'm at 18.7, but I also hit the buttons a couple times because, you know, I think when we turned off to go through that bottom, I was short by like maybe 0.2, but I wasn't sure if you had fixed things on here or not.
Yeah.
So,
Tried to.
okay, so I was a little bit short there, so it's possible that we had to keep going on that road where those guys went and then turn off of it.
Yeah, but they would have been way long.
They would have been way long. I agree. So, but this definitely isn't right.
Well, yeah, except that we haven't been way on. If we want a 336 cap heading, that's like there-ish.
Right.
And,
well, what I also wonder is, like, I see sticks and stuff right there, but that's too close to be the 22. And we're gonna jump on a gravel road up there at some point.
Yeah, at 23.2.
Which would probably be down in that bottom. I could convince myself of that.
Same. So
a whole bunch of people ended up getting lost there, and it was kind of interesting to go back and look at this and just see where we talked to. We did eventually figure it out. Of course, the GoPro was turned off by that point. But we talked through it for quite a while, and really the root of all of it was we weren't in the right place, and that should have been very obvious to us right away that we were not in the right place, because the cap headings didn't align, and they really should be within a couple degrees. If you're 10-20 degrees off like we were, something is wrong. And also in the video, when I was kind of on the very, very faint 2-track there, 1, my cap heading was wrong. 2, I was still 0.2 off on my odometer. And part of the problem that we had was that we had just switched bikes. We were just playing around, trying each other's bikes. Since his is an RFR and mine is a 690 built into an RFR. So we didn't really know where our odometers were or how much to trust them. So we had a whole bunch of pieces in there that were a problem. Neither of us wanted to lose any time by going back, because we'd gone, a couple kilometers away from where we were supposed to be, or where we last knew where we were. But what we should have done, and what should always happen in rally, if you're truly lost, you should go back to your last known position. And in this case, it was going back to the 16.7-ish, where we didn't know where we were.
Man,
And eventually that's what we did, and we figured it out that we hadn't gone far enough, and then it became very obvious. It just looked like it made sense, and then it stopped making sense, especially if you used all of the information on the roadbook. So in a situation where I get lost now in a roadbook, this is a video that's a little bit over a year old now, so still learning all of these things, and it's a constant process, but recovering to me is if I'm totally lost, I am going to go back to my last known position. I'm going to reset my odometer, even as painful as it might be to go back 5 kilometers or something. I'm going to go back, I'm going to stop, I'm going to reset, and I'm going to carefully ride and try to make sure that I've used all of the information available in that instruction. And that's something that can be easy to miss if there's a cap heading and you don't normally look at cap headings, or maybe there's some quirk of the drawing, the actual tulip itself. All of those details are there for a reason, and sometimes it's still not obvious, but usually doing this completely resolves the issue. You go back, you figure out you were wrong, and away you go. Because the further you go away from that, you could hear us talking, this kind of makes sense. Like, I could convince myself that, we're just off a little, and if we go down this hill, there's a gravel road down there. Well, you get further and further away from where you're supposed to be, and you end up just wasting even more time. If you figure out that you're that wrong, go back to your last known position. Sometimes in the process of doing that, going the other direction, you see where you were supposed to go, and you just couldn't see it from the angle you were at before. So cut your losses quickly. Don't keep adding to the loss by riding in the wrong direction and hoping it makes sense. Go back, reset, and then continue on and try it again. In some cases, you still can't quite figure out where you are. You do have to be careful going back. You're following your own track. You might be going the wrong way on the course. So be careful not to run into people, but in general, kind of remember where you went, try to just carefully go backwards. Sometimes you can get even more lost going backwards because you didn't follow your tracks very well, and now you've made another Y off of your old track, and then you're really truly lost. So try very, very hard not to do that. It's quite hard to recover if you stack up, getting lost on top of losing your own track, returning to where you last knew you were. So be very careful with that. When you turn around, look at your odometer. If the point you're going back to is 16.7 and you're sitting at 18.7, you know that you rode 2 kilometers. So, and when you ride back, at about 2 kilometers, you should be back at a point that you remember. So try not to play with the buttons and scroll your road book up and down in the process, because you can really add a lot of variables in the process of doing that. Not insurmountable to recover from that, but the more changes you make, sometimes the harder it is to get squared away. So, look at it when you turn around. Do the math on how far you think you need to go, ride back to where you were, and then if you can't find it, sometimes, there's a lot of terrain features out there. Ride to the high point. Sometimes, if let's say you're on an HP and you are trying to pick up a road, and riding backwards on the HP is really hard, but you're right next to a hill, maybe just ride up to the top of that hill. A lot of times you can then see where you're supposed to go. If you're looking out far enough. So lots of little tricks to recovery there, but a lot of it comes down to kind of keeping a level head, backtracking, and not getting excited, not changing too many things, and not continuing to ride in the wrong direction when you know that things aren't lining up. If you've got an instruction that doesn't line up and it's not even close, stop there. If it's kind of close, the better one, the next one must be dead on. So otherwise turn around. So just some thoughts on recovery.